My name is Margaret. I'm 76 years old. I'm a great-grandmother to 9 great-grandchildren. And for 54 years I believed I had the perfect marriage here in Ohio, until one Tuesday afternoon I discovered my husband Robert in our bed with my own cousin Eleanor. What I did next didn't just end my marriage, but completely destroyed our family in a way I never thought possible. This is a story I've kept secret for 2 years, because the guilt and remorse consume me to this day. If you think you've seen revenge, if you think you know family betrayal, brace yourself. Because what happened in that house in Columbus changed the lives of 21 people in our family forever. Before I continue with this story that will shock you, please subscribe to the channel and leave your like on the video. In the comments, tell me if you've ever experienced family betrayal and how you dealt with it. Your experience might help other people who are facing this same nightmare. It was April 2022 when my life completely collapsed. Robert and I had always been considered the model couple in our community here in Columbus. 54 years married, 4 children, 12 grandchildren, 9 great-grandchildren. He had retired from General Motors 10 years ago. I had always been an elementary school teacher until I retired. Our routine was predictable. He went every morning to the community center to play cards with his retired friends, came home for lunch, took a nap, and spent afternoons tending to our garden. Eleanor was my cousin, on my mother's side, 3 years younger than me. She had been widowed 5 years ago when she lost her husband Frank in a car accident. Since then, she had become even closer to our family. She had lunch with us every Sunday after church, helped with holiday preparations, and I considered her more than a cousin. She was my best friend. That Tuesday in April, I had gone to the mall to do some shopping for my granddaughter's birthday. I came home earlier because I couldn't find the gift I wanted. When I parked in the garage, I noticed Eleanor's blue Honda Civic in the driveway. I found it strange because she hadn't told me she was coming, but I thought maybe she had stopped by to talk to Robert about something. I entered through the back door. As I always did when returning from shopping, the house was silent, different from normal. Usually, when Eleanor visited, I could hear them talking in the living room. I put the bags on the kitchen table and walked toward the living room, thinking about greeting them. But when I passed through the hallway, I heard sounds coming from our bedroom, sounds that made me stop immediately. My stomach turned and my hands began to shake. I knew exactly what those sounds meant, but my mind refused to accept it. I approached the bedroom door slowly, as if I were in a nightmare. When I opened the door, I saw the most devastating scene of my entire life. My husband of 54 years was in our bed, in the bed where we had shared more than 5 decades together, making love with my cousin Eleanor. They were so lost in each other that they didn't even notice when I opened the door. I stood there, frozen, watching the man I had loved for more than half a century betraying not only our marriage, but our entire family. Eleanor's legs were wrapped around Robert's waist, and she was moaning his name in a way that made me physically sick. I backed away slowly and closed the door without making a sound. I walked to the kitchen like a zombie, sat down at the table where Robert and I had shared thousands of meals together, and tried to process what I had just witnessed. The betrayal wasn't just from Robert, it was from Eleanor too. The woman I had trusted with my deepest secrets, who had cried on my shoulder when Frank died, who I had helped through her darkest moments. For about 20 minutes, I sat there, in complete shock. Then something inside me snapped. The sadness began to transform into a rage I had never felt before. A rage that burned in my chest like fire. It wasn't just anger about the affair. It was anger at being made a fool for God knows how long. Because thinking back, the signs had always been there. Eleanor's frequent visits when I wasn't home, the whispers that stopped when I got close. The times I found Robert dressed too nicely to go play cards. The small lies I ignored because I trusted him completely. The way Eleanor always knew things about Robert's schedule that I sometimes didn't even know. That afternoon, sitting in my kitchen while my husband was upstairs destroying our marriage, I made the most destructive decision of my life. I decided that if they wanted to destroy me, I would destroy them right back. But I wouldn't do it impulsively. I would plan it carefully, methodically, and I would make sure the entire family knew exactly what kind of people they really were. Quietly left the house and drove to my daughter Susan's place across town. Susan was my eldest, 48 years old, married to David with 3 teenagers. I told her I needed to talk to her about something urgent, but that we couldn't discuss it at her house. We went to a coffee shop downtown, and there I told her everything I had just witnessed. Susan's reaction was exactly what I expected. She was furious, disgusted, and immediately wanted to confront both Robert and Eleanor. But I convinced her to wait. I told her I had a plan that would expose them properly and make sure everyone in the family knew the truth about what they had done. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a detective in my own home. I started paying attention to patterns, taking notes, gathering evidence. I discovered that Robert and Eleanor had been meeting every Tuesday and Thursday. When I usually went to my book club and volunteer work at the church, they had been using our house, our bed, for their affair while I was out serving the community. I found receipts in Robert's wallet for a motel outside town from months before. I discovered love notes Eleanor had written to him, hidden in his toolbox, in the garage. The worst part was reading those notes and realizing their affair had been going on for almost 2 years. 2 years of lies, 2 years of betrayal, 2 years of me being the fool who trusted them both completely. The breaking point came when I found a credit card statement showing that Robert had been buying Eleanor expensive jewelry and paying for romantic dinners at restaurants he had never taken me to, even for our anniversary. He was spending our retirement money we had saved for 50 years, on his affair with my cousin. That's when I decided to execute my plan. I called a family meeting for Sunday after church, telling everyone it was important and that both Robert and Eleanor needed to be there. I told them I had an important announcement about our family. Everyone came, all 4 of our children with their spouses, most of our grandchildren who were old enough, and of course, Eleanor. That Sunday morning, I sat in church next to Robert, holding his hand during prayers, acting like the loving wife I had been for 54 years. Eleanor sat 2 rows behind us with our son Michael's family. After the service, everyone came to our house for what they thought would be a normal family lunch. I had prepared Robert's favorite meal, pot roast with mashed potatoes and green beans. I set the dining room table with our best china, the set we had received as a wedding gift and only used for special occasions. Everyone was laughing, talking, enjoying what they thought was just another family gathering. After dessert, I stood up and asked for everyone's attention. I told them I had something very important to share with the family. The room got quiet, and everyone looked at me expectantly. Robert was sitting at the head of the table, smiling, probably thinking I was going to announce a surprise trip or something pleasant. Instead, I looked directly at him and said, "I want everyone here to know that your father and grandfather has been having an affair with Eleanor for the past 2 years. Last Tuesday, I came home early and found them in our bed together." The silence that followed was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop. Robert's face went completely white, and Eleanor started crying immediately. Our children looked like they had been slapped. Our teenage grandchildren didn't know where to look, but I wasn't finished. I had prepared a folder with copies of all the evidence I had gathered, the motel receipts, the love notes, the credit card statements, even photos I had taken of Eleanor's car parked in our driveway on days when I was supposed to be out. I passed the folder around the table and told everyone to look at the proof of what these 2 people had done to our family. The explosion that followed was unlike anything I had ever witnessed. Our son Michael immediately stood up and started screaming at Robert, calling him names I had never heard my son use before. Our daughter Patricia ran to the bathroom and threw up. Our youngest son James just sat there in shock, staring at his father like he was looking at a stranger. Eleanor tried to explain, tried to say it just happened, that they never meant to hurt anyone. But our daughter Susan, who already knew the truth, stood up and told Eleanor exactly what she thought of a woman who would betray her own family like that. The words that came out of Susan's mouth were so harsh that Eleanor ran out of the house crying. Robert tried to defend himself, tried to say he still loved me, that it was a mistake, but I cut him off. I told him that 54 years of marriage don't just disappear because of a mistake. I told him that he had made his choice when he decided to betray our family, and now he would live with the consequences of that choice. The aftermath was immediate and brutal. Within hours, the news had spread to our extended family. Eleanor's own children disowned her. Robert's brother, who had been his best friend for 70 years, called him and said he never wanted to see him again. Our grandchildren were devastated, especially the older ones who understood what had happened. But the real destruction was just beginning. Our son Michael, who had always looked up to Robert as his hero, had a complete breakdown. He started drinking heavily, and his marriage began falling apart because he couldn't handle the betrayal. Our daughter Patricia became severely depressed and had to start therapy. James moved across the country with his family because he couldn't bear to be around the family anymore. Eleanor's relationship with her own children was completely destroyed. Her daughter Rebecca, who had always been close to our family, blamed her mother for ruining everything. Eleanor's son stopped speaking to her entirely and moved to another state. Eleanor herself had a nervous breakdown and had to be hospitalized for depression. Robert begged for forgiveness, promised to end things with Eleanor, offered to go to counseling, but the damage was too deep. How do you forgive 54 years of trust being thrown away? How do you rebuild a marriage when your husband betrayed you with someone you loved like a sister? The divorce was messy and public. Because I had all the evidence of the affair, I got most of our assets. Robert had to move into a small apartment across town. Eleanor, unable to face the family shame, moved to another state to live with her sister. But the real cost wasn't financial, it was emotional. Our family was completely shattered. Family gatherings became impossible because the children couldn't agree on whether Robert should be invited. Some of our grandchildren sided with Robert, saying everyone deserved forgiveness. Others refused to speak to him at all. The worst part was watching how my revenge affected our children. Michael's drinking got so bad that he lost his job. Patricia's depression became so severe that she had to be hospitalized twice. James cut contact with the entire family, including me, because he said the way I handled things was just as destructive as what Robert had done. 2 years later, I'm sitting here telling this story, and I honestly don't know if I made the right choice. Yes, Robert and Eleanor got what they deserved. Everyone knows the truth about what they did. But in my quest for justice, I destroyed the family I was trying to protect. Robert is now living alone, his health deteriorating, with most of his children and grandchildren refusing to see him. Eleanor is in therapy, dealing with severe depression and the loss of her entire family. Our children are still struggling with the trauma of that Sunday afternoon when their family exploded, and me. I'm alone in the house where I spent 50 years of marriage, surrounded by memories of a life that no longer exists. I got my revenge, but the cost was higher than I ever imagined. Sometimes I wonder if I should have just confronted them privately, tried to work things out, maybe saved the family, even if I couldn't save the marriage. The truth is, revenge might feel satisfying in the moment, but the consequences last forever. I destroyed 2 people who betrayed me, but in the process, I also destroyed myself and everyone I loved. That's the real truth about revenge. It doesn't just hurt your enemies, it hurts everyone around you, including yourself. If you're facing betrayal like I did, think carefully before you act. Consider whether your need for justice is worth the price everyone will pay. Because once you detonate that bomb, you can never put the pieces back together the same way again.